Hi! On the Woodpecker today, I continue working on my dresser. In the first part of building my special chest of drawers, I managed to make the exterior raised panels and also the base. But there are still quite a few things to do, including the two thick frames that will hold the drawers sections. I had surfaced and glued thicker wood just for this. Now I need to cut it to size. When that's done, I mark for domino mortises and drill them. Since the wood is much thicker, I use bigger dominoes. When that's all drilled, all that's left to do is to glue the two frames and wait for the glue to dry to be able to sand the frames. Like all the pieces I've cut so far, the pieces are wider than I really need. So I cut the bottom of both frames straight. With a thin shim under the frame, I mark the height of the frame and cut them. I'm not finished because they are, like everything else, too wide. The reason for the greater thickness is that these frames hide drawer slides. I cut the grooves with two router setups. This way, I don't have to change the position of the guide and have less chance of making a mistake. When it's cut, I have to put the end straight. This is how the slides will become invisible, because they fit perfectly into the grooves. Without changing anything, I make the grooves on the other sides, but I lower the frame on the router to start the groove. To figure out where to screw the slides in place, I put double-sided tape on the other part of the slides and put the frame in place. I make sure that it holds well, and with René's help, I remove the frame and screw in some screws. This is how the frame will hold in place. It will be perfect. I really like it. I just have to repeat everything on the other side. But I'm not finished with the horizontal part of the base because I have to cut a chamfer all around. After sanding the glue squeeze out of the plywood, I can put the horizontal part of the base in place and put the outside on top. I put it in place and trace the shape of the exterior from the inside and also from the outside. With these marks, I can drill for screws. I turn everything upside down, align everything on its lines, and drill pilot holes in the frames. After putting the vertical part of the base back in place, I can screw everything together. Now that everything is assembled, it's time to start the work on the two drawers sections. This is all the wood I have left. I won't have enough, but I have some thicker boards left from the mobile frames. I'm going to plane them to the same thickness as the rest. Okay, that's better. but still not enough. I glue small boards together and wait for the glue to dry before sanding them. To be able to figure out what wood I'm going to use, I cut a straight end to all my glue ups. Okay, that's done. It's time to make the boxes now. I start by cutting all the styles and rails that I'll need. This is the only piece I have left that I had already glued. But it's not enough. I'm going to glue all these leftovers together. I now have to wait for the glue to dry before sanding all of them. Just like for the other pieces, I cut a straight end and cut them to the right width. Now that I have enough wood for all the frames, I cut everything to the right length. Here is all the wood that I will need to build the frames of those two boxes. But still, it won't be enough. I can use all those leftovers. I just have to glue them together. With all that, I will be able to continue. Meanwhile, I can still mark where to drill the domino mortises for the base and the top of the two boxes and drill them. But I have a small problem. I no longer have 6mm dominoes. I'll be forced to use these pieces of maple, but I have to cut them to the right length. After a little while, I get sick of picking them all over the place and finish cutting them with the scroll saw. Now I can glue the two bottom frames of the boxes. Since the top frames will have a panel, I cut a groove on all the pieces. When that's done, I measure the size of the panels and cut them. I had kept this glue up just for that. Now it's time to glue everything together, being careful not to glue the panel inside the groove. Again, I have to wait for the glue to dry, but I can still take care of the two back panels. That's done. The last four panels are a little longer to make because they have 4 rails. It's still the same technique for drilling domino mortises. I cut grooves for the mini panels that will be between each rails. It's time to make the 3 panels, and for that I'll use this glue up that isn't very pretty. I start by cutting it to the right width. And to the right length. Then I cut a tongue all around. Next, I can glue the 4 side panels for the boxes and wait for the glue to dry. Now that I have the 10 pieces, I can make the 2 boxes. I begin by sanding everything. And that's when I notice that I have a nut that won't stay in place. I'm going to fill it with epoxy. I start by making sure it won't leak onto the floor. I'm going to use a 5-minute epoxy. But this epoxy is a little thick, so I put the 2 tubes in the microwave for 20 seconds, and now it's clear as water. After mixing it well, I can fill the hole. Now it's time to take care of the 2 boxes. I start with the bottom, and like all my frames to date, it's bigger than what I really need. So I cut a little wood on both sides of the 2 frames. Okay, the frames fit perfectly. I have to do the same thing for the top ones. Then the 4 sides. Now that I have the perimeter of the 2 boxes, it's time to make the assemblies. I start with the bottom and the sides. I assemble the panel dry, mark the top panel, and drill the other mortises. One box is half finished, and the second one is starting to take shape. I don't have the back that will hold everything straight. I have to take measurements and cut them. I cut just a little wider and fine-tune it with the jointer. One back at the right width, and another. They still need to be cut to the right height. Okay, now I have 2 frames with the right size. I just have to mark the mortises and cut them. It's time to take care of the grooves on the sides of the 2 boxes. These grooves will hold the drawers' slides. Since the grooves aren't cut from edge to edge on the sides, I put 2 marks to know where to start and finish the cut. I use a foot switch to start and stop the router. When I finish one groove, I move the fence and cut the others. In fact, each groove is cut in one of the rails. I move the fence 4 times for the 4 drawers, which is why I use a router on my table saw, because I can move the fence much further than with my usual router cabinet. Before I continue, I sand all the places where I cut the grooves. Now it's possible to glue the 2 boxes together. It's not very fast, because there are quite a few mortises and dominoes to glue. It takes a lot of clamps to glue a box. Now I just have to wait for the glue to dry. I'm going to tackle the top of this dresser. The first thing to do is sand the 2 big glue ups. But the glue joints aren't pretty on both sides. This one is the most damaged. I'm going to put this side on the inside because it will never show. This one has a side with few imperfections. I'm going to put this side on the inside, which will only be visible when the top is open. In fact, this end will be cut off. I only have this small end to take care of. I start by sanding the chainsaw marks. When the wood is smooth, I mix some epoxy. This epoxy is really liquid. To make sure it stays in place, I fill the end with hot glue. After that, it's as simple as pouring the epoxy to fill this imperfection. I use a torch to make the bubbles disappear. When the epoxy is hard, I can sand it straight. While I have the sander in the end, I can also sand the glue squeeze out of the two boxes. Now it's time to cut the two panels to the size of the top. I need hinges to hold the two parts together. To be able to cut their shape, I need to make a template that I cut with my CNC. This is my second cut, as you can see here. The double-sided tape slipped on the damaged plywood of my CNC, and this happened. That's why I'm forced to cut another one. On my template, I draw 4 lines. They will be used to align the template and know where to cut deeper where the hinge requires it. Then I change the cutter and cut the shape of the hinge. Before removing the template, I check if it fits perfectly. It does. But I have a small problem. The only router bit I have on hand has the ball bearing too far from the bottom. So I'm forced to buy another one. But the worst part is that one thickness of plexiglass isn't enough. So I have to cut another one. After cutting the second template, I glue it over the first one with instant glue, making sure the two thicknesses are aligned with each other. When the glue is dry, I make a test on 2 pieces of wood. It's perfect. Well, almost. Like an idiot, I lowered the bit directly into my template and did that. Now I'm stuck with this notch on it. Instead of making another one, I put epoxy over the deformity and wait until it's hard enough to sand everything straight. And it's time to do more tests. Now that I'm satisfied with my tests, I can make the cuts on the tops. I start by marking where the hinges will be and stick the template in place. Here, I say to myself, don't make a mistake. It's unforgiving. Well, it's just when I finished that I realized that I used the wrong line to align the template. Now I have to fix that as best as I can. I start by cutting a thinner piece of wood. With the CNC, I cut a plug. But I don't need the whole plug. I cut it and glue it in place with instant glue. Since it bounds fast, I don't have to wait long before removing the excess. I put the template at the right place and cut the mortise for the hinge. With all my troubles, I managed not to cut deep enough. I fixed that with a router plane. Here's my hinge. I would like to say that it's perfect, but it's far from it. Lucky because this piece of furniture is just for us at the cottage. I have to start all over again for the other hinge, but without making any mistakes this time. When the mortise is cut, I still have to get out the chisels and remove the rounded corners. This side is perfect. I just need to pre-drill the screws that will hold the hinges in place. For now, I'm using metal screws. They will make the threads and will be replaced with brass screws later on. Here's our chest of drawers top. It's going to be quite special. But I don't like this bit of bark. I'll rather have a top a little bit narrower than seeing bark. I also need to cut the other panel to the same width. I want to fill in some imperfections. For that, I still use a 5-minute epoxy. While the epoxy hardens, I can route the chamfer on the first layer. I ask René to help me support the panel. Now that the epoxy is hard, I can resand the top. To avoid having that in the way, I put it in place. And if you want to see the finished dresser, you'll have to come back and see me on the Woodpecker.